the technology. So basically, what that was a storage frame uh, that had tiered disk with flash and also with different types of disk, and that was to address some of the latencies in our I/O on the disk side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One project that comes to mind is that also we changed the way that and I introduced that was uh, that can be like an accomplishment. So I won year of the idea of the year for MoneyGram. That
Mm-hmm.
was basically to what the way that we used to um, acquire storage and give storage to our workloads in the compute environment was that it was basically dedicated storage. So I presented the idea of thin provisioning. Basically, with thin provisioning, we were able to reduce the footprint of our storage,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically saved MoneyGram about close to $1.7 million in storage costs.
Okay.
And that was the idea of the year. I got award
Uh-huh.
for it, and one
What did
another from
basically target? Yeah.
pardon me. Go ahead.
Yes. What did that idea basically target, and how did it help save that much amount?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, so that idea was it was a competition within the MoneyGram to cost saving, new idea, out of the box idea how we are running the business, so, within the company. So, um,
Mhm.
it so that was the idea. Uh, that overall cost savings of about $1.8 million, and that got implemented. So I was awarded for it. Um, um, what else? So within that role, right? So brought stability to the environment. Did the We were lagging on uh, our risk on our hardware was quite high. Failure rate
Mhm.
was very high. So with the uh, policies in place, with the firmware and with the operating system, standardizing the operating system, we reduced the number of failures significantly and stabilized that environment. That was one thing
Okay.
that, yeah,
And so this is really
and
interesting that you established MoneyGram's first ever 24/7 command center with full end-to-end
yes,
monitoring. So just
yes.
can you just explain that one? Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started MoneyGram, we didn't have any end-to-end uh, monitoring system. So meaning we could have an issue at a agent location within software, and it was taking us long time to figure out where the bottleneck or where the issue was within the transactioning path. And we didn't have
Mhm.
any 24 by 7 data center monitoring or a command center either, right? So it was taking, we were losing basically a lot of time in troubleshooting, trying to figure out where the issue was. So uh, I put together a team from the operations side, working closely with operations teams and stuff. We put together a
Mhm.
command center. We put together using a software monitoring software called Dynatrace, which could give us the end-to-end monitoring of our transaction path. So physically, we put together a command center. We put where we were able to put the screens on the walls and displayed our the software. Within the software, we identified all the paths to the transaction from stack up from the hardware to the software level, and
Mhm.
set up the alerts within that monitoring tool called Dynatrace, and that it will trigger whenever there was because on transaction there's an SLA, right?
Yeah.
That you have to complete that transaction within a certain amount of time. So whenever there was an issue or we deviated from that SLA, it will trigger. It used to trigger it now. still triggers an alert, and the command center analyst can see uh, where in the path of transaction that we have an issue, and then they can certain remediations are in place. Otherwise, they can very quickly uh, bring in the engineers, open up a bridge, and start working on the problem and try to resolve the issue. So with that 24 by 7 command center and with that software in place, I mean, we made significant improvements in one, ability to resolve issues quickly and
Mm-hmm.
improve the performance and also customer satisfaction, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
So can you quantify the improvement in the issue resolution time? Like how much was it taking earlier and then having a 24/7 facility for that?
Yeah, I'm sure because I did put together some presentations on it. I can go through the documentation and figure it out. It was about 4 years ago. But
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there must be some, yeah, I can pull some data.
Okay. And this global network segmentation project is that we just discussed.
Yep.
Okay. And then maintaining a full active platform across data centers. So yeah, so how did you manage that?
Yeah, so with the data modernization,
Mm-hmm.
what we did was we implemented a high bandwidth network between the two data centers. So we put
Mm-hmm.
two 10 gig networks uh, basically between the two data centers that gave us a 20 gig of throughput between the two data centers. Now, in technical terms, bandwidth basically gives you the throughput. The second issue is about the latency, right? So when we increase the bandwidth and the latencies,
Mm-hmm.
I introduced on the storage frame with Hitachi a technology called GAD, GAD, Global Active Device. So what it does is basically synchronously between the two data centers on the storage layer. So once we extended the storage between the two data centers synchronously, then we could
Mm-hmm.
run active clusters of workloads, right? So we were able to deploy workloads clusters in an active manner where we were using the Cisco's uh, in technical terms, it's basically a ability to extend layer two between the two data centers, right? So once
Yeah.
with the bandwidth, with the less latency, with extension of layer two, and with synchronous replication of our storage, now we are able to run uh, active clusters between the two data centers.
Okay. Okay, great. And establish personal metrics by individual manager and area. So yeah, so what sort of metrics were these and why were these required?
Yeah, so that I think it was one of the HR's initiatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me think. Why did I put? So it was basically KPIs on managers' performance for work efficiency from uh, performance versus the goals, the
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth, and communication and stuff like that. So that was one of the HR's requirements that we put together for
Okay.
key performance indicators.
Uh-huh. Okay. So anything else then from this particular role that you think we haven't discussed so far or something that could be worth mentioning?
I think that pretty much covers it. There might
Mm-hmm.
be something that might come to my mind from my notes. I might be able to
Sure.
add, but that's what
Mm-hmm.
kind of comes to my mind.
Okay. Okay. And then the virtualization architect team lead and we discussed that modernization effort in detail.
Yeah, so that was the first when I started with MoneyGram. I came in as a lead virtualization architect, or lead for the
Mm-hmm.
virtualization team. So at that point, they had zero virtualization, uh, pretty small environment. They were running into quite a bit of issues. So they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
migrate to a virtualization platform. So that was the first
Mm-hmm.
implementation of virtualization stack in MoneyGram. So I did that. I designed it, uh, started, virtualizing some of the workloads, training the team of
Mm-hmm.
engineers. So that was the uh, first year and a half or 2 years that I worked on.
Okay. And yeah, that reminds me that in your current role, are you leading any training initiatives for the teams that you manage?
Yes, so I did. I mean, right now, um,
Mm-hmm.
not. I mean, training initiatives. Do you mean by
Like
in this
training the
current role
teams
or?
in terms of their professional development or on some new processes.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a training budget, and I send team members to depending on their once that within their respective fields if they need
Mm-hmm.
training. So there's a budget in place, and there's a process in place for um, the engineers who need to go to the training or seminars and stuff like that. But as far as in the first role, when I started working at MoneyGram, yes, I was doing training for my teams for operations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to conduct trainings. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. And so, any other challenge that you had to tackle while you joined as the virtualization architect?
So it was first was that you know it was a it was an all physical environment, and it was one of the goals that was given to me to build that environment and stabilize that environment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the failure rate on physical because of legacy hardware was very high. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the outages, the system outages were very high. That was costing MoneyGram a lot of system outages, and so um, I'll have to think in terms of numbers, but one of the first goal was to stabilize that environment, and I was able to redesign and rebuild that environment to a state where it was less number of outages, and that was one
Yeah.
of the very first goal that was set for me from that time. I could think, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Perfect. And then this principal systems program or team lead, a programmer team lead role. So, at which company was this?
That was at Health Partners.
Okay. And so,
um,
any background you would like to give from that role of yours? Like, what was that all about, or what did that include?
yeah, so I started as a systems programmer, and
Mm-hmm.
at Health Partners, I was there for 10 years, and I moved through the ranks. You know, had multiple promotions. So eventually, when I
Mm-hmm.
left MoneyGram, I was left Health Partners. I had moved up to a senior principal slash lead, team lead.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that included basically system engineering,
Mm-hmm.
providing support from hardware stack, data center support, hardware stack, operating systems, Citrix, VDIs for a hospital and for a fairly large organization. So um, and also leading the team. So in that role, I designed our Citrix environment. I designed our VDI environment. I designed our operating system environments, hardware. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, so and then build a team of 6 engineers and train them up on those technologies.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Okay.
That was
And you
the
have also
role.
mentioned realized a 90% reduction in administrative overhead for deployment of security patches. So yeah, so
Yeah,
how did you? Yeah.
yeah. So automation was another big achievement in that role because most of the workloads were manually patching, manual deployment of operating system. So
Yeah.
what I did was through scripting, um, and then also through some tools, I was able to automate the provisioning and configuration of the environment. So that helped to improve the build process. So, for example, if it took 2 weeks to build a server or to deliver an environment, with automation, with the scripting that I put in place, the engineers were able to deliver within a week or less, even less,
Great.
depending on the if we get through the security approvals and stuff. So that was very efficient process. It improved the workflow, and also
Mm-hmm.
it improved the provisioning and configuration for the servers. And then also because it was automated, it had less issues because these were all uh, uh, standard builds, right? So
Yeah.
there were no issues of deviation from the process and it helped because with health partners in the health industry, we had HIPAA as
Yeah.
one of the governance. So I also worked in HIPAA to uh, for that certification as well, right? So uh, operating system stability, automation, repeatable tasks, and then standardizing on the operating system and policies. So yeah, that's
Okay.
how we
Mm-hmm.
achieved the automation and provisioning.
Okay, great. And this architect designed and deployed SMS infrastructure with multiple sites. So yeah, so why was this necessary? And
Yeah, so uh, health partners had it's a large number of clinics, right? All these
Mhm.
remote sites for clinics. They had, I think, more than 50 clinics, and each clinic has compute. So to manage that environment, I deployed the Microsoft's SCCM or SMS at that time, um,
Mhm.
uh, platform. With that platform, we were able to one achieve the automation because we were able to manage and provision and configure all these remote environments through a single pane of software. So
Mhm.
that was the software that helped us to achieve those, and I designed and deployed it for all those clinics.
Okay, perfect.
And with that, I mean, I think we were also managing the AD. I remember also helped migrate the data center. That was a huge effort.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so from my side, it was a migration of the data center from um, one facility to another,
Mhm.
and I helped from the infrastructure side on that
Okay.
migration.
Okay, great. And then, so I think the rest of the information pretty much makes sense. And yeah, so okay. And so the positions earlier than this one, like the one at Decision One or Bell Atlantic, so we don't recommend going back from the year 2000. And
Okay.
so because that really creates an age bias.
Yep.
So I recommend leaving it to the position of the principal system programmer,
Okay.
and yeah, and we can just continue from there.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
Uh-huh. And so another thing is that you had earlier purchased another resume version, and later you said that you don't think you have a need for that. So, but then
Yeah.
I got a chance to visit your LinkedIn profile, and
uh,
to me it really looks like what we call in our terminology a bare bone structure of the LinkedIn profile. So why don't you opt for updating that? And that
Yeah,
will
we
just include $100. And yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. I wasn't sure at that time when I chose the option of going for the second resume. I think your suggestion is better. Maybe work on that LinkedIn profile. So
Okay,
yeah, if we
perfect.
could do that, that would be good.
Sure. So shall I ask Fatma to charge it automatically? Or, other than
So
that, we have form as well. Yeah.
how does it work? What's the cost for LinkedIn profile?
The
And
LinkedIn
will it
profile
be
actually costs, yeah, it actually costs $400, but since you have purchased a resume already, so it will be at a discounted price of $200.
so okay? So it will be extra 200 apart what I already paid 100.
No, so you have already paid $500 because you had gone for another resume iteration. So you just need to
Yeah.
pay $100 additional.
Oh, $100 additional. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then
Mm-hmm.
we can do that.
Okay, perfect. And so our turnaround